the night she vanished. On the evening of May 3, 2007, the McCann family was on holiday in Praia da Luz, a resort in Portugal's Algarve region. Kate and Jerry McCann, along with their 3 children, Madeleine, age 3, and her younger twin siblings, age 2, had rented an apartment, 5A, in the Ocean Club. That night, after putting the children to sleep around 7 to 7:30 p.m., the parents went to dine at a nearby tapas restaurant with friends, periodically returning to check on the children. They say they checked on the children several times, and later at around 10 p.m., Kate went to looking on them again. She found Madeleine was gone. The children's bedroom window and its exterior shutter were open, and the room was empty. Madeleine's bed still held her comfort items, a soft toy and blanket, but she was not there. Panic rapidly set in, and Madeleine's gone. Someone's taken her, became the cry that would echo around the resort. Responding quickly, the resort staff, guests, and police launched searches throughout the night. The Portuguese police, the Polícia Judiciária, PJ, were alerted, and patrols, dogs, and volunteers scoured the area. Apartments, beaches, wells, caves, and ruins. However, the golden hours, those first crucial hours after disappearance, were fraught with delays and procedural missteps. Border controls were not immediately alerted. House-to-house searches did not begin promptly, and descriptions of Madeleine were not circulated broadly until later. One of the early and most talked about witness accounts came from Jane Tanner, one of the friends dining with the McCanns. Tanner reported seeing a man carrying a child around 9:15 p.m., some blocks from the apartment site. She immediately passed to police. The child's clothing matched Madeleine's pajamas, and the sighting shaped much of the early investigation's direction. Soon, suspicions, leads, and controversies multiplied. A local man, Robert Murat, living nearby, became the first officially named arguido suspect. Private investigators were hired by the McCanns and worked alongside or sometimes in tension with Portuguese police. Cadaver dogs alerted in the apartment and in the rental car, and DNA and fiber collections began, though no conclusive trace of Madeleine emerged. In July 2008, the Portuguese Attorney General formally archived the case, citing lack of evidence. The McCanns were cleared as suspects and returned to the UK, but the case never truly closed for the public, for media, or for investigators who believed there was more to uncover. Investigations, suspects, and the lingering shadow. When Portuguese authorities closed the formal investigation in July 2008, it was not the end of the story. For Kate and Jerry McCann, there was no closure, only the anguished determination of parents desperate for answers. Backed by supporters, they launched Madeleine's Fund, leaving no stone unturned. An organized effort to fund private investigation work, raise public awareness, and keep the case alive in media and political attention. Over time, this fund became an essential pillar in sustaining momentum for new leads and resources. Private detectives were employed to revisit every angle, searching local records, interviewing witnesses, mapping out possible travel routes, analyzing patterns of crime in the region, and scrutinizing known registered offenders in southern Portugal. The McCanns also brought their case into the public eye through frequent appeals, media interviews, documentaries, and high-profile charity events. Their message was consistent. The search was not over, and they would not rest until there was clarity. Meanwhile, in 2011, the British government acted. In response to public pressure, the Home Office commissioned the Metropolitan Police Service, the Met, to launch Operation Grange, a full-scale review of the disappearance from the UK perspective. Operation Grange was not a new investigation from zero, but a re-examination of everything. Witness statements, forensic reports, timelines, gaps in the initial Portuguese inquiry, and potential suspects or persons of interest previously overlooked. Operation Grange brought fresh resources, renewed scrutiny, and diplomatic cooperation with Portuguese authorities. It expanded the investigative team in waves, funding periodic extensions to continue its work. By 2014, the Met had sifted through thousands of pages of files, re-interviewed dozens of key witnesses, and developed new lines of inquiry that had seemed dormant. The Met's efforts were not without criticism. Some argued that the original Portuguese case was mishandled so severely that later efforts were constantly handicapped by gaps in evidence and procedural flaws. Still, Operation Grange's commitment helped to keep the case on the world stage and permitted new forensic techniques to be considered. For example, as of March 2024, the total cost of Operation Grange had reached approximately £13.2 million. Wikipedia. A seismic shift came in June 2020, when German public prosecutors formally named a German national, Christian Bruckner, as their prime suspect in Madeleine's presumed death. The announcement did not conclusively confirm how the crime took place, or precisely where, but it marked a turning point. For the first time, a suspect was explicitly tied to the case by prosecutors in a country beyond Portugal. German authorities cited concrete evidence and stated that Bruckner had been near Praia da Luz at the time of her disappearance. Wikipedia +2, The Guardian +2. Bruckner already had a criminal history, convictions for sexual assault, drug trafficking, possession of child pornography, and other serious crimes. Investigators in Germany argued that Bruckner had been in Portugal in 2007, or shortly before, and had the knowledge and capacity to commit abductions. However, the evidence remained mostly circumstantial. As of that time, no formal charges in connection with the McCann disappearance have been filed. Legal jurisdictional complications, statutes of limitation, and a lack of a body made the path to prosecution extremely complex. Wikipedia +3 Wikipedia +3 The Guardian +3. Over the years following 2020, collaborative search operations were mounted, primarily in Portugal, guided by German prosecutorial requests and with Portuguese judicial police (PJ) assistance. In June 2025, an especially ambitious search took place. Portuguese prosecutors, acting on a European investigation order from German authorities, led coordinated efforts across multiple sites near Praia da Luz, including scrubland, abandoned buildings, shallow wells, and terrain between the resort and Bruckner's former residences. All items recovered were to be handed over to the German Federal Criminal Police Office, BKA, for analysis. The 2025 search was intense. Heavy machinery, ground-penetrating radar, excavation tools, divers investigating small water bodies, canine units, and forensic teams meticulously combed soil and foundations. The sites were flooded with speculation and media interest. Authorities, however, confirmed no definitive breakthrough, nothing that conclusively tied Madeleine's disappearance to any one location or suspect as of yet. Nonetheless, the search renewed public hope and attention. After nearly 2 decades, the case was not dormant, it was active again. What complicates matters is that Bruckner's case in Germany had its own twists. He was imprisoned for a 2005 rape of a 72-year-old American tourist in the Algarve, the same general region as Praia da Luz. His sentence for that crime overlapped with the timeline of Madeleine's disappearance. In 2024, he stood trial in Germany on additional charges: 5 separate sexual offenses and child abuse allegations purportedly committed between 2000 and 2017, some in Portugal. However, in October 2024, the court in Braunschweig acquitted him of those unrelated charges, citing insufficient evidence. He remained imprisoned due to the 2005 conviction. As 2025 approached, legal and procedural pressures mounted. On September 17, 2025, Bruckner was released from Seine prison after serving his sentence. His release was not entirely free. He was subjected to strict controls. He was required to surrender his passport, remain within Germany under restrictions, wear an electronic ankle monitor, and declare a fixed residence. The German Public Prosecutor's Office continued to regard him as a suspect in Madeleine's disappearance, even post-release. The timing and conditions of his release reignited debates and speculation across Europe. Some critics argued that releasing a prime suspect before pressing formal charges was a failure of the justice system. Others countered that Bruckner's continued status as suspect meant he remained under surveillance and would not be free to exit German jurisdiction. Meanwhile, back in the UK, officials weighed the possibility of requesting extradition if evidence allowed, so that a trial could proceed under British legal frameworks. In the months following his release, cooperation and investigative momentum remained crucial. Scotland Yard reportedly submitted formal requests to interview Bruckner, but the requests were refused or deferred, citing legal and procedural limitations across international jurisdiction. Beyond legal maneuvers, the human dimension of this case endures. Kate and Gerry McCann continue to press for renewed searches, public awareness campaigns, and political pressure to keep the case alive. Every anniversary of Madeleine's disappearance brings fresh appeals and examinations of possible leads. The public discourse, media attention, and true crime community remain intensely engaged where others might have forgotten. The world remembers one child's vanishing. Thus, after nearly 2 decades, Madeleine's fate remains unknown. No one has ever been convicted for her disappearance. No body has been found or positively identified. No final court judgment has determined exactly what happened that night in May 2007. The McCanns continue to wage their fight for answers. Investigators Portuguese, German, British still comb through clues, testimonies, and fragments of evidence. The question that began in a quiet holiday apartment in Portugal continues to echo globally. What happened to Madeleine McCann?